Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are heading into Game 5 and talk about gray hair. At least we have some hair left, because I think casting this series, the casters have already ripped out all their hair.
Yeah, this has been a crazy series.
Yeah, talk about back and forth. I mean,
there was that one point before the Baron went down. 3-2, yeah.
Possibly, well, maybe it's not going to go in favor of Pam eventually.
But there was that one point before the Baron that they were literally dancing the Baron. I think it was 2 people died, then 2 people on the other team died, then 1 person died, then another person, then there was 3.
Got respawned.
Yeah. But that's already like past 20 minutes into the game. We have seen the Shen having to flash pre 1 minute even, because he got caught out. And then immediately after, he just 1v1s Galio before the lane phase even starts. So both top laners losing their flash.
I really like that. He camped the brush. He waited for the Galio to arrive because he's like, I need to start the lane well early because I've already lost my flash. Galio has to lose his flash immediately. They're now playing an even playing field. Even with the Rengar coming up top, no Galio flash means they can't secure the kill.
Yeah, because they don't have that taunt available with the Galio, which would have been crucial for that. He had hit that level 2 point, so if you scale that up then, and then you've got the Rengar coming in, that would have been him just wiped off the map. He did have the taunt, but wouldn't have got him very far. So really solid play coming out of him to try and equal up that.
So what we've been talking about is that the story of the game has been, this is the first game in the series where VVV drafts a full physical damage composition. The only magic damage coming in was from the Galio, but we saw him build full tanks, so it's pretty negligible in that way. And the longer the game goes, Pam just has the advantage.
One of the things I want to, based on that, is the fact that it's an early to mid-game comp. You have full AD, you have a really good tower pushing towards the mid-game, and a lot of early game damage, especially with things like the Jace in the mid lane. Suddenly you're now being pressured back because you only have this Rengar in the jungle who hasn't gotten the usual early lead or even the early invade, which surprised me. I thought he was going to go for it. Decided that the Shen without flash is the better target. When he didn't secure that kill, they pretty much decided this game's about to extend a lot longer than the previous few.
This is the first time the junglers, as you mentioned, didn't have that significant impact in pre-5 minutes.
There is like a usual route for Rengar. He normally goes the 2 buffs, or he goes the 3 camp start straight into the enemy jungle to invade them on their red buff, which is what I expected to happen, or even he could have gotten to invaded on the opposite buff. However, deciding to go for this Shen means he couldn't go for the invade, and actually the casters touching it at the time, the Kha'Zix was allowed to farm up, he was allowed to continue his full clear route, which left Ploxy for the first time in a long time ahead in the early game.
Yeah, and that was a big, it was a good call. He had the flash down, it made sense to go for it. But because the flash had been blown on the Galio side, it meant that it changed the playing field completely, and he just didn't take that into account. If he had gone for the invade, would have been a lot better, because, of course, both of them were super low in that top side from trading back and forth, so there wouldn't have been that pressure to go and help them. So I think there could have been a play around that, but realistically, that's the thing. We were saying this is a game of junglers constantly throughout this, where whichever jungler gets ahead early, it was the one who usually end up snowballing it. Neither of these junglers could get an inch or get a footing into this game, and we saw how back and forth it was because of that.
Yeah, and we saw, I think, my first big noticeable thing is that top lane team fight, but that's at 17 minutes. Last time, I think my first timestamp was like 5.
Yeah. And we have also seen the story of the previous game was pretty much Pam drafting a late game compositions, but just never actually getting to the point where they could scale into their effective power spike. This time around, though, partially because of the full physical damage composition and that significant Baron steal coming in, there was a point in the game where if Veni Vidi Vici secures the Baron, the casters have been mentioning it so many times, there's just no wave clear on the side of Pam.
This is amazing. It's actually what VVV tried to do is the exact same thing they did last time. Stop hitting the Baron, send the jungler over to kill them. This is something they did in game 1 when they had the Nidalee. However, this time, the culling hits the Baron, which leaves it low enough for the steal to come through. Kha'Zix just gets it with the jump, and Maxilaw's not even in the pit at this point. And now the fight starts turning around. Yes, they lose most of the members for this Baron, but even going even in this fight was huge given the state of the game before this. And you can just see Darkseid managed to get out at the back of this fight. Yes, he greeds back in, only leaving them with 1 Baron buff, but the amount of kills they picked up on the back of this was pretty much impossible to do unless they'd secured that Baron. So honestly, amazing steal by Ploxy, amazing even slight bit of damage from the culling from Darkside, whether you call it luck, whatever you want to call it. I honestly think they played around it perfectly. And when it came to Baron dances, this was by far the tensest one, and it turned around, and it turned the whole game and possibly this series on its head.
Yeah, and that was the thing as well. It was actually Vardags who started tanking up the culling. You could see it was the Karma and, the support and the Caitlyn were standing on top of each other, but it was actually Vardags who started tanking the very edge of the culling, which meant when that fight kicked off, he was super low, so he couldn't even do anything or commit anything to that fight.
Already, the Jace and the Caitlyn just tanked so much damage from Baron Nashor. Yes, while they were stalling out the Baron, it was Galio who actually tanked the majority of the damage, but even when you're ahead this significantly, the Baron is pretty much as a sixth member of the enemy team, and you just allowed Baron to participate in the fight.
And they didn't have a wave clear, so that could have led to something absolutely disastrous if the Baron had gone the other way, because they had no real way of dealing with the Baron wave, but it then led to this fight.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at it here, it looks like Lucian's been caught out on the side, and it looks like it's going to be absolutely terrible. But the thing is, they're not able to burst him down because the call was to commit for the tower. This means that when they go in, the Galio ult hits absolutely no one, but a massive hemo play comes in on all 5 members of the enemy team, and then it's just simple cleanup. And they've got nothing they can do from here. Realistically, they needed to either make the call to commit for the tower or the Lucian, and when they kind of split between the two, this is the result. And because they'd already picked up the Baron, there wasn't the minions that were there, they were able to push through and pick up so much.
I think the lack of commitment was a big thing here, because you had Galio already chunked down to like 30% HP at the start of that fight, then forced to use the hero's entrance, so he had hero's entrance and run. Whereas what you want is hero's entrance and attempt to re-engage, but they were already on the back foot coming into that fight due to poor or mistimed commitment, I suppose, from Bwipo. And then the whole team fight fell apart, and they continued to fall apart throughout that because it snowballed off the gold they gotten from the Baron, the gold they gotten from that fight, and fights just continued to go their way.
And that was one of the things that you touched on, Dan, was the difference when you had the Galio being the engage and the Rengar being the engage. In these early fights, we were seeing it was the Rengar who went in first, and then the Galio was following up with the ult. But in all of these last fights, after that Baron went down, it was Bwipo who was trying to be that engage. He got onto the Lucian in that fight. The next fight that we saw in the mid lane as well was the TP by Bwipo in behind the enemy team, but it meant that every time he tried to use the Galio ult, he was using it defensively either to escape or to try and bolster team, but it meant that they were hitting nobody with that, whereas originally it was the Rengar who was being the engage and they were hitting multiple members, so that's a big loss for them.
And then we look towards the 32-minute mark. This has already started to snowball out of control in favor of Polite and Mature. Then they decide to commit to this Mountain Drake. They want to pick up something for their troubles, get themselves another objective. However, they then get chased off the side. Yes, they pick up the Dragon, but they're now in no position to get towards that Baron. You see the Mantra Shield come out for the speed up. They run straight to it. They beeline, and this is the commitment. This is the way Polite and Mature are better at playing the mid to late game. And this is what we haven't seen from them before because they've never been allowed to reach it. Benny Vidi Vici have to hope they don't again.
And not respecting how quickly that the Baron can be burst down by this team. You've got the Kazakh's isolation damage, and you've got that Blade of the Rune King on the Lucian as well, who's going to be whacking away at that. They just didn't think where the next play was going to. It was very, 1 or 2 steps ahead, whereas it looked like Benny Vidi Vici, Polite Mature even, were just way further ahead.
This all plays into later game. They're not used to Baron going down as quick. Regardless of comp you run, Baron goes down extremely quickly at that point of the game with Blade of the Rune King being in meta. So I think it's just a lack of practice at that level of the game. They're used to early pressuring and winning in that regard. We saw that the same thing with Serbi when they tried to win in the semis. And it's got to be a big worry for them going towards game 5.
Exactly, and by this point, Vladimir was already able to just get onto the Caitlyn and with a full rotation actually 100-0 him. But with that in mind, we have seen the biggest changes coming into the initial phase of the pick and ban. So I'm really interested to see what the two teams are going to be bringing to the table coming the final game of the series. Because honestly, we have seen both of the teams play significantly different playstyles throughout the series. So my question to the casters this time around is, which playstyle do you guys think we're going to be seeing both Polite and Mature and Veni Vidi Vici just draw this game?